Dr. Reshmi Kazi. She's an expert on India's nuclear weapon policy, nuclear non-proliferation studies, security, terrorism, and global nuclear disarmament. She's also written various articles on bioterrorism and chemical terrorism. She's currently on a project assessing the standards of nuclear security and critical evaluation. Over to you.
First of all, my sincere thanks to General Nagal, Colonel Rao for facilitating and providing me this opportunity to present my views. I have structured my presentation in the following manner. India's contribution to nuclear security, role of GCNEP, that is the Global Center for Nuclear Energy Partnership, that is India's Center of Excellence, Nuclear Center of Excellence, which has been working now to improve nuclear security as well as radiological security. And I will be also speaking about security culture, India's nuclear security culture. In the Indian context, I would opine that this is a watershed moment in the history of global nuclear security as well as for India, because there is so much going on. Not only is the threat considered to be more real, but a lot is happening at the global level as well as within India. Since nuclear security is a national responsibility, a lot of things are happening which makes it a watershed moment in the history of global nuclear security. We have just completed the Nuclear Security Summit process, but the process, even though the 4 summits are over, the process will be taken further because there are gift baskets which have come up. There is the implementation, nuclear security implementation unit which has come up. So these are new things which have been designed to take forward the nuclear security process further in the future. So even though much was accomplished to improve and upgrade nuclear security threats, the threat still remains undiminished, and that is what we are primarily talking about. And that is why this is primarily because there are still some wrong people who are nursing malicious agenda to get nuclear as well as radiological materials. So considering all these factors, a newer thinking is required to improve nuclear security. And for this, India has a roadmap, a plan. A roadmap primarily means a plan or a strategy that is intended to achieve a particular goal. And in this case, the goal is improving nuclear security and strengthening it further. So nuclear security is primarily defined as the prevention and detection of and response to theft, sabotage, unauthorized access, illegal transfer, or other malicious acts involving nuclear or radiological substances or their associated facilities. And India's approach to nuclear security constitutes of 5 elements: governance, institutions, technology, international cooperation, and nuclear security practice and culture. These essential elements are visible in the forms of India's state responsibility, legislative and regulatory framework, criminalization of offenses, international detection and response mechanisms, and contributing to a sustainable nuclear security regime. We see nuclear energy, nuclear materials, nuclear technology to generate nuclear energy, which, nuclear energy plays 3% of our energy mix comes from the nuclear sources. So it is an important source. The emphasis is for generating nuclear energy. This is not to say that we do not have a strategic program. We do. But the point is the reduced salience. Our salience is not on the strategic aspect. We do not want to project or do not adhere to a policy where nuclear weapons are seen as weapons, as tools of war fighting. Rather, it is a political instrument. And in this case, we want to emphasize that it is a source for meeting a part of our energy requirements. India has further accepted all the 13 universal instruments to combat international terrorism. It is a party to the, and these instruments are benchmarks for a state's commitment to combat international terrorism. It is a party to the Convention on Physical Protection of Nuclear Material, that is the CPPNM. India has ratified the 2005 amendment to the CPPNM. It is a party to the Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism, ICSANT of 2005, and these are important tools for combating nuclear terrorism. The Atomic Energy Act 1962 governs India's legislative and regulatory framework. It also exercises control over nuclear installations and the use of radioactive substances and technologies. Its mandate extends to both the safety and security of sensitive nuclear and radiological materials. Obviously, it also helps in creating an interface between the safety and security aspects. Further, the AEC mandates that the nuclear industry manufacturing nuclear equipment based on important technologies strictly adhere to the guidelines established by the AEC itself. We have in addition, we have the Nuclear Control and Planning Wing that helps to integrate safeguards, export controls, and nuclear-related activities. DAE has also issued a security manual of critical infrastructure for its facilities. We also have the computer, we were talking about the cyber threats. So India has the Computer Information and Security Advisory Group that provides protection against extensive application of information technology and potential cyber threat. In addition, India also has the Crisis Management Group entrusted with the responsibility to inspect the information concerning nuclear and radiological disasters as well as incidents. Measures are also underway to counter and reduce cyber attacks and facilities for better functioning of instrumentation systems in various installations. The CISAC and the CSG, they constitute a fully developed system capable of playing an effective role for improving and strengthening nuclear security. As mentioned earlier, we have harmonized the SCOMET list with that of the NSG, and India has also expressed its desire to be part of the existing control regimes to strengthen the nuclear non-proliferation objectives and contribute to a robust nuclear security architecture. India is already a member of the MTCR, which we joined recently. India also enacted the WMD Act 2005 that provides overarching and integrated legislation prohibiting unlawful activities in relation to WMD, and it also it symbolizes India's commitment to prevent proliferation of WMD at the operational level. The 2005 Act further reiterates India's obligation under the UNSC Resolution 1540. It complements to the UNSC Resolution 1540 and is in sync with the basic objective of the UNSC 1540, that is to prevent proliferation of all WMD. Now, India also has in place a counter-nuclear smuggling team, which is a coordinated multi-agency approach that has been set up to deal with the threat of individuals or groups acquiring nuclear or radiological materials for any malicious purposes. The threat of radiological terrorism is very real, it cannot be ignored, and to that extent, the AERB provides robust safeguard measures. To that extent, reviewed by the IAEA Integrated Regulatory Review Service, the IRRS mission undertook peer review mechanism, and it certified that the AERB takes full benefit from the operational experience with the aim of continuously enhancing its regulatory framework and process. It has acknowledged that the strength of AERB's regulatory practices and capabilities, and efforts are also underway to transform the de facto functional independence of AERB into de jure autonomy through a Nuclear Safety Regulatory Authority, as mentioned earlier. We also have the NIA Act 2008 that acts as a counterterrorism law enforcement agency at the national level. Now, we were also talking about technology earlier in the day. There are efforts to convert HEU into LEU to prevent the threat arising from illicit use of weapons-grade fuel. HEU, as you would know, is more potentially is more attractive material for the terrorists, but serious efforts are being undertaken. Serious efforts are underway to convert this HEU into LEU. To that extent, the Cyrus nuclear reactor in India that was using HEU all this while has been shut down permanently. It was in 2010 it was shut down, and the planned replacement reactor has no plans will not be using HEU in future. There is a facility has also been set up for the production of medical grade molybdenum-99 by the uranium fission route using LEU targets. In addition, we follow a closed fuel cycle which is conducted in such a manner that ensures the security of nuclear materials. There is also a sophisticated detection architecture in place. In my personal interactions with officials from BARC and also particularly from the BARC and GCNEP to some extent, there is a sophisticated detection architecture in place to prevent, detect, and respond to any kind of nuclear or radiological incident. We have a network of 23 emergency response centers, and this works in tandem with the IERMON, that is the Indian Environmental Monitoring Network. So we also have the radiation portals and detection equipment for maintaining vigilance on all passenger vehicles and cargoes that have been installed and in all major ports as well as airports. Nuclear security cannot be done in singularity, or one nation cannot contribute to a robust nuclear security architecture. So international cooperation is a very important aspect for strengthening nuclear security at the national level as well as the global level. So there is a need for, India acknowledges that there is a need for sharing of best practices, training and expertise to broaden awareness about nuclear threats, nuclear as well as radiological threats. And to this extent, we have the GCNEP that is, as a security provider, it's acting. So far, it appears it acts as a security provider by imparting training to more than 300 national and international participants from around 30 countries so far. We also have the physical protection of nuclear materials and facilities, radiological emergencies, nuclear forensics, insider threats, vulnerability assessments, transportation security, cyber security, disaster management, and response mechanisms, which are all part of the GCNEP curriculum as well as their agenda. They are holding regular courses, workshops, symposiums on these various important aspects to spread awareness. In addition, India has also collaborated with the IAEA in furthering effective international collaboration to strengthen nuclear security. It has extended cooperation to the INSERC 225, revised Revision 5 recommendations on physical protection of nuclear material and nuclear facilities. Efforts are also underway to combat the threat of of illicit trafficking, and to that extent, India participates in the IAEA ITDB process regularly. Voluntarily, India has also, on the radiological front, India has voluntarily adopted the provisions of the IAEA's Code of Conduct on Safety and Security of Radiological Sources. India has supported review of its pressurized heavy water reactors by the OSARD mission. We have held workshops on IAEA's International Physical Protection Advisory, IPAS, with the agency experts in 2016. There are this is supposed to be held. It's not yet held, but it's going to be. The IPAS is supposed to take place in 2016 this year. There are plans for that. There are also plans for participation in the International Conference on Nuclear Security organized by the IAEA in December 2016. There's a lot going on that front. I am personally also involved to some extent on this issue. India has already contributed 1 million to the IAEA's Nuclear Security Fund in 2013 and proposes to contribute a similar amount in 2016 as well to the Nuclear Security Fund. Voluntarily, India has also contributed $100,000 in 2015 for the modernization of IAEA's nuclear applications under the Renewal Project. India is party to the Global Initiative to Combat Nuclear Terrorism, that is GICNT, and has contributed in all three working groups of the GICNT in the areas of nuclear detection, nuclear forensics, response and mitigation, and it plans to host a meeting of the GICNT working groups in 2017. Role of GCNEP. This is a huge aspect of our commitment to improve nuclear security, and the GCNEP, though it's still under construction, but it is believed that the first two schools are going to be coming up by the end of this year. My personal interactions with officials made me come to that conclusion that in all probability the school is going to have, officially the building is going to be functional in Bahadurgarh, Haryana by the end of this year. And it seeks to produce sustainable and constant improvement in nuclear security. Its principal role is to improve awareness about nuclear security and non-proliferation through education, quality training programs, and technological support. This is very important because the training aspect is something which needs to be emphasized upon. This is where all complacency concerning nuclear security can be, kicked back. The GCNAP emphasizes on practical training through experimental facilities. It plays a cardinal role in enhancing and understanding the responsiveness to proliferation risks and consequent threats to nuclear security. It facilitates conduct of degree courses in collaboration with universities that assist development of a dedicated body of technologically trained specialists for improving the functioning of nuclear security. In addition, the GCNAP is holding regular courses and as well as exercises, conducting programs to build efficient technical personnel trained to prevent potential theft, sabotage, and to deal with the threat of nuclear terrorism. So the personal reliability program that we are talking about is also, being taken care of the GCNAP. GCNAP also has a dedicated outreach program. This is a qualifying edge aspect of the GCNAP. It seeks to promote publicity of technologies developed by DAE for training in several areas. Symposiums, workshops are being held regularly. There are training of Indian as well as international participants through international seminars and group discussions by experts on topical issues. And there is also development and conduct of courses in association with interested countries and the IAEA. Cooperation on nuclear safety and security not only enhances non-proliferation and nuclear security efforts in the world, but also benefits activities in spreading awareness about nuclear security. And this is all this adds to our nuclear security culture, how seriously we are taking it in our country. And to that extent, the GCNAP has emerged as a world-class national training center and as international resource. It also upholds the pledge for India's pledge to be a responsible state with advanced nuclear technology. It is of critical importance to reinvigorate the non-proliferation regime and heightened nuclear security. It is, of course, a signature to India's commitment to strengthen and improve nuclear security, both internationally as well as globally. By now, it's quite obvious that India's consistent nuclear security efforts reflects its vigorous culture of nuclear security. India's nuclear security culture is aimed at prevention, detection, and response to any nuclear and radiological emergency situation. And an effective and sustainable nuclear security culture must be embedded upon rules, regulations, and intelligence agencies, cyber units, response mechanisms, as I mentioned. So this is the core essence of the nuclear security culture in India. But so far as the future prospects are concerned, we were talking about whether it's not being the nuclear security culture, even though there is so much of awareness about it, it's not being still addressed holistically. So I have a set of probably, I'll just flag off a few points. These are my own thoughts. There are certain, when we are talking about nuclear security, we also have to think of the potential pathways that can, accelerate nuclear threats to nuclear security. So there are certain aspects, like in a recent Homeland Security 2016 conference that I attended on border security management, there were some people who came from the border areas, from China and India bordering areas, and they are in a pathetic condition out there. They don't have medical facilities, they don't have the basic amenities, they don't even have basic technology like internet, and there's a lot of anguish. The point is, these people can act as potential pathways if they are left unhappy. Border people are the second line of defense after the armed forces, after the our defense forces. So these people, they need to be kept happy. They need to be properly, on ground situation. Their grievances needs to be addressed adequately so that they do not turn as potential pathways across the porous border which we have, and that needs to be addressed adequately. The detection architecture, I spoke about that we do have a sophisticated architecture system, but a lot more needs to be done to further revamp the detection architecture that is existing at present. It needs to be made more sophisticated. There are drones are coming up. There is a lot of technological advancement so far as drones are concerned, and they are employed on the border areas. Of course, drones are very light; they cannot carry heavy sensors or, for that matter, detection systems. But there are certain, in my personal interactions with the industry people, there are certain mechanisms which carry very light sensors, and they can help in radiation. Hazards, but then that's very limited. GCNEP, the centers of excellence. We are talking about nuclear security, which cannot be done in vacuum or, for that matter, single nation. We have 17 nations in Asia that are in some way or the other associated with nuclear weapons or technology or materials. There are 17 such nations, and there's a huge threat angle because there is a demand for nuclear energy, there is demand for nuclear weapons, and more nations are adding to the list. In addition, there are 3 nations that are associated. One is a nuclear weapon state, and the other 2 nations, India and Pakistan. Israel also, but then since it follows a policy of ambiguity. But India and Pakistan, we have 2, if not by the NPT standards, nuclear weapon state, but states with advanced nuclear weapons capability and weapons. So I think there should be certain mechanisms where a collaboration could be worked out between the centers of excellence amongst these countries. Centers of excellence, there's a lot of issues. I can understand there are political issues so far as Pakistan is concerned, even with China, but then one needs to think that centers of excellence can act as apolitical. They are apolitical in nature. So efforts can be made where certain kind of collaboration can be worked out at the centers of excellence level that can eventually help in the nuclear security. White paper, reports. There is a need to showcase what we are doing. It's important. Otherwise, people are clueless. So there are, of course, a lot of opposition to whether we should have a white paper or not on nuclear security. But I think there should be regular. We had in 2014 a report from the MEA on nuclear security in India, and I think there should be certain white reports. We did this conference in IDSA, and we came up with a report which went to the Nuclear Security Summit. The last one, just the 2016 Nuclear Security Summit, the report was published on record time and was sent to the Nuclear Security Summit this year. So reports like this should be published and timely published and made available to the world community, to the nuclear security community at the global level to showcase that this is what we are doing and that we are not complacent about our nuclear security. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And